Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. I'm recording this just after the previous video actually, because I just saw this posted in one of the discords, which is on Maxroll. They did a translation for part 1 of the season 2 teaser. Also, music I have in the background is the login screen, just because I have it in the background because I didn't actually fully log out of the game. But I'll just have it there, and I think it'll be fine. But thank you, Microsoft. I appreciate that. Get out of the way. All right. Going back into it, we have season 2, which we knew got delayed in China, right? We were very well aware of that. That it is now on October 30th instead of being on October 15th. And so a part of this newsletter that they have here, it's going to be in 2 parts, but this is part 1. I think part 2 is maybe going to be a little bit more in depth, but we'll have to see. But let's get into it. So, enemy and content adjustments. So they talked about how there was a lot of critical feedback about the combat in the game, which I can understand. I think actually I've had this. This is for the bosses, I think specifically, which they talk about here. Enemy optimization. Players have expressed that enemies don't feel very threatening and that the combat lacks tension and stress. In Season 2, there will be comprehensive optimizations made towards enemies, wild bosses, and dungeon challenges. I'm interested to see what those are. I've talked about in like a video from weeks ago, I think from CBT, right, I did the Towering Ruin dungeon, right, that was the last one I did. It would be nice if in a lot of the phases that are typically downtime, that there be something to actually attack, right? So, like, I think the boss should be able to take damage during the laser mechanic. I think that, because even if you assume that maybe the people who are taking the laser aren't going to be attacking, or that the healer will be healing or whatever, there are going to be people who aren't taking the laser, which means they're effectively doing nothing because they can't attack the boss, so all they do is stand there and watch their teammates take damage, right? It's ridiculous. Or in the one where, you know, all the DPS and healers go to the imaginary dimension and then the tank is left over, they can't really attack the boss either. Like, they kind of can, but it doesn't really do much. They're not going to do much damage. And also, like, the boss kind of ends up flying through you, so it gets very awkward when it comes to that. And so they talk about after reviewing action logs from all enemies in Season 1, it has been determined that some enemy attack patterns were oversimplified or repeated and became redundant. I think I had heard, and I would have to go back and actually see the videos of it, but in the original version before Master Mode, right, in the China CBT, I think it was just called Nightmare Mode as well. And I think Nightmare Mode sometimes actually had different things a little bit, and I think some of them were even nerfed or reduced in their effectiveness, and so I'm very interested to see kind of what this means. The developers have noted this and will be adding more variations and reactions to player behavior. If we get more boss patterns, that's a great thing, I think. Like, more dynamic aspects of attacks. Again, I think some of the most fun boss fights are ones that do have quite a bit of attacks. Like, Tina feels like she has quite a few attacks. I kind of wish, like, literally, honestly, my only thing I think for Tina that they should do is that, because sometimes you can get the Void Sigil in the cabinet minigame where you have to teleport, which I think is fine. I think that adds a layer to it. But also, I think she should be able to cleave from the other side. I think you should be able to look at, like, what direction she's cleaving from instead of having her always cleave from left to right, you know? Like, literally small things like that would be a great way of just, like, enhancing the dynamic aspect of the fight. Is like, oh, there's one pattern where she's swinging this way. Oh, now she has the spear on the other side. She's going to swing this way, right? Anything like that would be totally fine. In addition, elite enemies and wild bosses, these are what are in the open areas, will exhibit new behaviors, such as adjusted attack frequencies and reaction speeds. Finally, hit detection, both player and enemy, will be further optimized, making combat feel more impactful and expressive. This might have to do with stuff like, I know Flash Strike on Eidolblade, some enemies it goes through, some of them it doesn't, and sometimes I think it's better for it not to go through the enemy, because then you don't have to, like, catch back up with the enemy as you go through them. Dungeons and new challenge modes. To improve team coordination and the solo experience, solo challenge mode and 2-player challenge modes will be added in this new version. These can be accessed from the simulation terminal. The enemy's difficulties and mechanics displayed will scale depending on the number of participants, giving you more freedom to choose your preferred playstyle. More details to be announced in Part 2. So we'll have to see kind of what that is about. And then body customization. There is some stuff here, although some of it I wish was explained a little bit more because technically it's already available. But in response to player feedback, the developers tease that players will now be able to change their body types after using a Visage Reforger. So as you know, when you create a character, you have body type 1, 2, and 3, which is basically like small, medium, large. So they're saying that now when you actually go to change how you look, you can now actually change the body type as well, which is really, really nice. Should have been there from the beginning, obviously, but nice that it's there. Additionally, you can now fine-tune your character's height, build, and limb proportions to better capture your desired appearance. I don't know what this means, because technically you already can do this, I thought. Maybe not. Maybe they're just saying, like, I'd have to check in-game and see. I thought you still could adjust these a little bit. I was hoping you would be able to adjust them more. I don't know if they're going to allow, because that was one of the things I think with the feedback as well, is that we want a bit more adjustments, because a lot of these proportion adjustments are so minor that they're basically unnoticeable. So I don't know. But they do note that in-game emotes and animations may vary depending on the proportions you set for your character. I think if you like hold hands with a short person, the hands do not quite reach if it's a tall person, which is kind of funny. Finally, changing your gender while under the effect is in the pipeline, but will not be present at the start of Season 2. We kind of already knew that they were working on that, but they do plan on making it so that you can change and swap genders in the Visage Reforger as well, which will be nice. The customization option will be implemented in the future. Then we got some Homestead stuff. Popular Homestead system in Blue Protocol is now in active development, and in Season 2, you'll be able to visit each other's homesteads and islands. Again, you'll be able to do that. You'll have multiple interface optimizations and clarity. Again, there were a lot of issues with the actual building UI and the construction UI, especially inside the house. It was just hectic and like overlapped with too much stuff. The planting interface will now show the color and shape of the flower, whereas before it was unclear. New furniture placement functions. I still wonder if they're going to allow you to like actually like sit on furniture and stuff like that, because I don't recall being able to do that. But maybe I'd have to check again. And material tracking for life skills, furniture crafting, and homestead commissions has been added to unify the interface, which is really nice. Yeah, okay, that's all cool. Gear adjustments. There's some really important stuff here. Gear obtainment is being refined in Season 2, and the developers have adjusted the attributes and drop sources of multiple gear types. Some items that previously came only from wild bosses may now also be crafted or obtained from future side quests. Additional changes included, but are not limited to, gear enhancement is now shared across multiple sets. I have no idea what this means. So, right now, at least in official, right, you have a refinement, you have reforge, there's also the gemstone and modules that will come later that we don't have. So, refinement we already know applies to all your gear sets. We already know that if you refine on your helmet slot, that's going to apply to any helmet you wear. So I don't know what this means when it says gear enchantment or enhancement is now shared across multiple sets. Does that mean if I reforge a helmet to 100 perfection, that will apply to the other ones? Because again, refinement already does apply to the other sets. So I'm not really sure what this means. Like what enhancement is being shared. I have zero clue. Maybe it has to do something with the raid gear. I have no idea. Maybe the raid weapons. I'm not sure. But the most important thing on this page, to be honest, is this one. You can now swap between gear loadouts. I think this is going to make swapping between classes that are not the same role and more specifically do not share the same gear set a lot more reasonable. Even for ones where maybe they do share the same gear set, if they have different substats that you prefer, and so you have like one gold gear set, like maybe, I'm int right now, so I have my life bind and then I have my frost beam. Technically they have somewhat similar stats, so I'm kind of building into both of them anyway, but let's say I had separate ones, right? So I had my gold int gear for life bind and I had my gold int gear for frost beam. I could now switch between those loadouts when I switch classes as well, presumably with a single or maybe 2 sequence button press, which will be a lot less annoying than having to go through and equip every piece of gear again. Added recommended attribute tags to help you choose the right gear for your loadout. Again, some of them are not super accurate. I don't know if they're going to update these because of what people have figured out, because again, some of the thumbs up stats are not always the ones you actually want, at least not all the time. And then they said gear sorting and comparison interfaces have been improved, which is nice. And then for the future, over the next few months, the Blue Protocol Star Resonance development team will continue to improve and expand various systems based on player feedback. Here are some of the upcoming plans. The new open world exploration region, the Bahamar Highlands, which again is the plateau area that I've talked about before. Larger maps and new biomes with interactive environments. Again, more exploration stuff. Some of the biomes, I do hope that, because again, I kind of like the underwater area that was in the CBT, the Skimmer's Lair, but it was kind of small. I wish it was bigger. Guild collaboration and co-op content, including large-scale team challenges and guild hall editions. Definitely would like to see more guild hall editions or customization. Let us change the background from the fish tank to something else. I don't know. Pet and companion system. Players will be able to capture, raise, and fight alongside these creatures. I assume just in the field. Like, these remind me of like the chocobo fight thing that you could do in Final Fantasy, where you could just have it fight alongside you. And or like the wind-up toys as well, maybe. Storyline updates, which we obviously know, and that's kind of said here as well. Continuation of the main story and introducing new refreshing characters. So definitely a lot of interesting things to look forward to. I'm really curious about the enemy and content adjustments. I'm looking forward to that. I'm also looking to, again, more body customization stuff. Always want to see more of it. I want to be able to make your character more defining of yourself. Very important aspect of the game, I feel like, or at least a very useful and like pulling aspect of this game compared to a lot of the others, especially since it is, you know, that anime visual style. People being able to create what, you know, they want is always going to be good. And then also, again, gear adjustments. The gear loadouts, I think, is huge. And the gear enhancement being shared, whatever that means, could also be huge. Again, I'm not sure what this part means. I don't know what that means, because refinement is already shared. So what does it refer to when it says gear enhancement? I have zero clue. But the loadouts are huge. Very much looking forward to that. But yeah, that's about it for this video. I'll probably do another one on part 2 when that comes out. And I will look forward to seeing you all in the next video. Thanks for watching.